Good afternoon, everyone. It's Anipa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, my contemplative time has been very much about cheerful recovery. What do I mean by that? Have you noticed that every single person is going through something in life, which, of course, some people are going through something that seems really great, and some people are going through something that seems really not great. And yet, the people who are in the best positions that I've seen, certainly in my practice or friends and family or myself, are people who are cheerful, right? So if you see people who are cheerful, that even when they're going through a not easy time, and it doesn't mean that they're cheerful through that not easy time, but they're more likely to bounce back into a cheerful spot because that's the spot that they've trained in themselves for the longest or practiced in themselves through thoughts, through words, through actions. Now, some people are really even cheerful through a not good situation. More people that I've seen, and certainly my experience too, and I think I'm pretty cheerful, it has been that whole idea of can bounce back from those not easy times, right? And again, we all go through them. And so today I thought I would bring some attention to cheerfulness with this beginning quote. This one is by Joseph Addison. And this quotation says, "Cheerfulness keeps up a kind of daylight in the mind, filling it with a steady and perpetual serenity." Isn't that lovely? So, again, cheerfulness keeps up a kind of daylight in the mind, filling it with a steady and perpetual serenity. And this is the thing is if we are able to bring our minds to this space and consciously doing so, and people will do different things. So somehow some people listen to fun music, some people watch uplifting videos, movies. Some people will have time for connecting with nature, which I think is a beautiful way to keep that space of serenity. But again, it allows this cheerfulness, and it's usually because we're getting out of our mind in that time, right? So I love taking nature walks, and I suspect that some of you will also enjoy that. But other people might really just enjoy breathing, meditating, perhaps doing yoga or some other exercise. But there will be something that you know works for you, and if it brings about this energy of cheerfulness, that's fantastic because that's you then training your mind to get into that spot when times are not so easy too. Now, you know, the other people, and you might be some of these other people, other people get into a space of no matter what is happening, good or not so good, when something good is happening, it's like, well, I hope this doesn't change. And if something not good is happening, it's like, oh, of course, I knew something would happen. And then I hope this doesn't last too long, but I bet it will. You know, that sort of energy. And recognizing where you fall in this spectrum is really useful for our own health and certainly our own personal mental health, but certainly also the health of people around us, because anyone listening to that energy is not lifted. And we're not lifted if we're sharing energy in that space too, right? So that recognition of it's affecting at least two people if you're sharing this with someone, but it also energetically affects lots of people around our environment. So you could be at work and not saying anything to anyone, and yet the energy emanating from you, if it is in that space of not cheerful or perhaps even gloomy, right? I might even say the other extreme, it would actually affect the energy of that entire office that you're in. So recognizing that, but it starts with ourselves. So it affects ourselves and then it affects other energies around us. So this is really interesting to recognize because where are often people's minds when they're thinking about things that they're worried about? It's about family and friends, right? So this is, I don't think this is moving in the right direction. I don't like how this person spoke to me, or I don't like what this person did. It's usually close family and friends. And if we catch ourselves in that, recognizing that that energy, it doesn't matter how close or far that person is from you, they're going to feel that sort of energy from you. And they won't know where it's coming from, but they will suddenly feel that energy. And you speak to that person and you think they're in that sort of space, but it's actually also contributed to by your own energy. So this is that conscious awareness of how we affect one another energetically this way. This quotation that I came across was by Charles Dickens. And the reason I found this quotation to also share in this video is because a lot of times people aren't saying anything, they're just quietly silently fuming. But the other times people can be very quiet is when they lose faith in something outside of themselves, like God or the universe, or even just a faith in the unknown, right? So just some sort of trust and comfort in that. And in those times, a lot of people become quiet because they're a little bit not so happy with something that's going on. They're thinking, well, nothing's looking out for me. This is where faith can be broken in any way, right? So sometimes faith in people, sometimes faith in, again, God or the universe, or a trust in something that is beyond ourselves. And so this quotation would apply in those times. It says, never close your lips to those whom you have already opened your heart. Never close your lips to those whom you have already opened your heart. And this is an interesting thing too, right? Because when we think about people who are in very close relationships, so this again could be from a child to a parent, parent to a child, could be from siblings to each other, it could be relationships, right? So, and what often happens that I've seen, and certainly I'm sure that I've experienced too, or participated in the experience, sometimes we really want to hear something from people that we care about. And I won't say sometimes, I think most people love to hear loving things from people that we care about. And when nothing comes, when there's absolutely nothing, not even a how are you? And there's a different energy of how people ask these things too, right? There's the how are you, which is kind of like how are you, which is kind of what everyone does with each other, even on the street. Oh, hi, how are you? And there's not really interest in even knowing how you are, right? We all know that this friendliness are the words, but it's not really felt, right? And then there's a different how are you, where it's like, how are you? Not the pushy, so how are you? How come I haven't heard from you? Not that energy either. But that sincerely caring about how are you is a very different spot than what a lot of people have fallen into. So then we don't even hear from people that we care about. We don't speak to people that we care about this way. And most importantly, we're not even speaking to something that we don't even see or trust in this faithful way. And this, again, could be someone that we love ourselves, where we can put out the energy of speaking kindly with them in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions, which a lot of people have kind of pushed aside as not important. And I'm going to say it's very important. And I'd like to finish with this quotation by Lao Tzu, which says, I love this quotation because a lot of the times that I find my greatest serenity, my most cheerfulness is right after, or sometimes during, but usually right after a meditation. And so this quotation struck me for this video too. It says, returning to the source is stillness, which is the way of nature. The way of nature is unchanging. Knowing constancy is insight. Constancy. You realize that all the things that we go through in our daily human experiences often have the duality component to the human experience, right? So one day the weather's really good, the next day the weather's not so good. One day it is a really busy day, another day it's a really slow day, right? So all of these sorts of things is duality. And there is an unchanging source, which is insight, right? So this whole constancy, if we are aware of this source that is constant, there's nothing changing, is eternal and steady. It's not something that we're used to seeing in our human earthly experience. Yet, if we silence the mind, we can remember that there is a constancy that's around us. It's also within us. And it sometimes takes, or often takes, our mind's focused attention to remember this. And that sense of constancy really does give a serenity, a stability, and a cheerfulness. So I hope that you will experience that today, however you do it, in whichever way, whether it's through prayer, whether it's through talking to a dear friend, whether it's through just the thought of there is this stability within me and around me, and I choose to be aware of it. That's a huge step. I wish you 5 minutes of doing that if you can. Of course, if you did an hour, it'd be even better. No, there's no time limit to this and no time restriction. Any amount of time that you can think about this in this sort of light. I hope it brings you cheerfulness, and I wish you a fabulous day ahead. I hope you remember, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day, everyone.